Hi, everyone. Welcome back to A Tribe Called Dhillon podcast. I'm Angie Dhillon.
And I'm Rose Dhillon.
And I'm Alvin Dhillon.
And if I can ask you for a quick favor to hit that subscribe button, share, and like, because guess what? Our digital family is growing, and it's all because of your support. We just want to say thank you very much and continue to support us, and we're going to do great things together. Into our Win of the Week segment. Who should I do? Al, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about something that hasn't been talked about in a little while. It's going to be my good old renovation related win.
Oh, we're back to the
Because
renos.
I'm finally at a point where now I can say I'm getting close to it being a solid win. So this is be the week where my kitchen is being ripped out.
Whoa.
Come a long way to get to this point. A lot of prep work.
Yep.
Going to be ripped out. It's not too much work because we're actually not throwing away a lot of the stuff. All the old cabinetry will be actually taken out and reused in the garage because we always have a lot of stuff in the garage. And if you look at a garage, you're always going to have a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But what makes it look messy is that you have open shelves. When you have open shelves, you store all your stuff. It just looks like there's like a whole crap load of junk in there. But when you have it with cupboards and you have it enclosed, most of the stuff you don't see and it looks more cleaner. So I said, these are solid wood cabinets. The countertops are solid. I was like, what's the point of just chucking it away?
Yeah.
So we're going to keep about 70% of it. There's probably some bottom pieces that we're just going to get rid of, but all the uppers and a couple of the big pantries we're all keeping in the garage. So it'll be a 1 week to rip it out. I want to say a few days to rip it out. About a few days to do the flooring leveling because we have a lot of settling, so it's actually taking quite some time. It'll take quite some time to level it because there's a lot of like ups and downs on the floor. So we'll level that flooring guy, and then the new cabinets will come in. So it won't be all of it; it'll just be the boxes, which is the cabinetry that comes in first. Then the countertop, make sure there's any issues, final stuff, and then the doors, and it'll be kitchen will be done.
And,
Very cool.
Any more construction and renovations project after the kitchen?
Yes.
Like when
it's not done. This is just a big portion of it. This will get us to about the 85% we're finished. But then you got to finish the flooring in the rest of the house. Got to finish the stairs, the front entrance, the living room downstairs, and then all the finishing, which is all the molding, the crown molding, and the wainscoting.
But the major big things are going to be done
all
at
the
the
kitchen, and that will be the main big area because it's used all the time. So once that's done, it's like a big weight off our shoulders.
Al, I think what you should do, because it's been about 18 months, just over 18 months now since our podcast launch. The renovations started about 12 months ago. Is that safe to say? So I think when it's all said and done, or at least you're at the 90% mark, you should probably do some before and after pictures for our listeners because they've been on this journey.
I've been taking pictures all before right now, but there's nothing after that's happened so far. It's all the before. Look how junky it looks right now, and then wait till you see the final finish because I don't want to take the picture where it's like it's got most of the stuff but missing the trim because then it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So there'll be a bunch of there'll be an episode about this one.
I think so too. And you know what? It just shows that we're being transparent because some of our listeners might be like, is that really his win every week? Like, is he really doing construction?
You know what?
And you're going to show it.
We're going to make an episode about that because the amount of time I've spent on there, even when I talk to family members, they're like, you're still doing renos? And that was my thinking when I first started. And then I realized, I was like, you don't know what it's like living in a reno. You cannot just
and having
bulldoze
a full-time
everything
job.
and then you're like, okay, I'll get done. Trying to get contractors in, getting them on time. They never show up. I was supposed to originally have my kitchen technically completed by this week, but it's been a 2-week delay because my contractor was out of town. And then he came back and he's like, I'm wrapping up another job. So I was like, my hands are tied. I got to wait for him.
You can't do anything until the contractors, because you're at their mercy.
Right.
Yeah, and like I can go and do like some of the work that needs to be done, but we all have full-time jobs. So with my job, like I don't have the time to go do that. So, but other than that, sometimes the things you want it done right now, I'm like, if I had the manpower and I had the time, I could take out all this cabinetry all myself and I could get the prep for the next guy. But I was like, we just don't have the time. Even with this podcast, it's like, we'll wait till it becomes a full-time gig and it'll be awesome because you'll actually see more energy from us. Not at the end of the week, we've been getting our ass kicked at work and then you're getting this energy.
Very true. Very true. Rose, what is your win?
Okay, so my win is, it starts off with not being a win, but it's going to end as a win. So I am someone who suffers from migraines. I've had migraines my whole life. They come in like a windstorm and then they leave. And every couple of years, it gets so bad that I end up having to go to the emergency and get some IV. This was one of those times where, unfortunately, a few weeks ago, I ended up having to go to the emergency again. And they just, they put some IV, they did some medicine, and I'm starting to feel better. But it was a rough few weeks because I unfortunately didn't nip it early enough. I thought, I'll fight through this. I fought through it before. But I'm just wanting to raise awareness about migraines because it's something that people don't see. It's not a physical symptom that you can see on it, but your head feels like it's getting kicked by somebody. It like the pressure on the sinus pressure, the head pressure, everything. It was about a month of feeling like this. And I was like, is this ever going to end? And I can say that for the past 7 to 8 days, I've been feeling so much better. My doctor has me on a antihistamine, and then I got to do the nasal spray and clean my nose out every morning. And it's helped a lot, but I'm going to be trying to get a doctor on to talk about migraines. I know that my therapist had told me that University of Washington actually has a research facility on specifically migraines. So I'm going to try to reach out to someone there. But if you are listening to this or watching this and you know someone, a doctor or a neurologist who specializes in migraines, please feel free to give them our information. Sorry. Because we would love to do an episode on this, because I really do feel like there's a lot of people in the world that suffer from this and they just don't talk about it and just don't know how to deal with it. And it can be very, very painful and debilitating. And so my win is that I feel much better now. I am back to my normal self. Thank you. Had great support system that helped me, but it was rough for a minute. And when days go by, you start thinking, oh shit, is this my new normal? Is this how I'm going to be feeling all the time? Because it was a very, very long journey with this time around.
Good for you, Rose. I'm glad you said that. And I think we have to explain that a headache is very different than a migraine.
Yes.
Right? A headache. Yeah. I know some people like, oh, I got a headache. Oh, a migraine is like times 10.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I too suffer from migraines, and with the sinus and the neti rinse. I'm kind of convinced right now, because it is allergy season and I'm all over the place right now. I've never suffered from allergies. I'm convinced it's a side effect of being like perimenopausal or menopausal side effect in these migraines.
Wow.
And the fact that the intensity of it, I think there's some link to our hormones.
It could be. And my doctor also said the environment, the way our climate is changing so drastically, some people are very sensitive. Mm-hmm. I'm very sensitive to it, because like literally my nose will be running and my eyes will be running, but the next day I'm fine.
Yeah. And the eyes start to water, right? Yeah. So I'm going to piggyback off what you said of that here, because I have a really good win too. So I've been contemplating back and forth with this individual, and I just finally pulled the trigger, and I just said, you're not good for me. And so I broke up. I broke up with sugar.
Oh, I was like,
gotcha, guys.
Yeah.
Gotcha, guys. Yeah.
I was like, what are we talking about that?
We're really going to do this live on air right now?
Gotcha,
okay.
I was like, I think he's going to give me a ride later.
Listen, my personal life is personal, but anything else, I will share. But no, I honestly, the three of us, and maybe more so Al and I, we have this addiction to sugar that I cannot explain to you. I even tried to do meditation with it. Like, where does this stem from? Because that's really the only thing that's got me. I could be pretty strong about stuff. And honestly, I'm at that age where now perimenopausal symptoms are wreaking havoc. And I know, and I've read that sugar is a big culprit. And women in our 40s are like, sugar has a different relationship than we do in our 20s and 30s. Like in your 40s, sugar is just terrible.
And same with the alcohol. Yeah.
And I was watching Dr. Mark Hyman, and he said that, as we get older now, and I think that's where the light bulb went off for me. And he said that how sugar actually ages us so well. It starts to age us as we get older, and what it does. And basically it activates our I hope I'm saying this right, our endocrine system, which activates our cancer cells. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, listen, man, we're starting to get some good growth here on YouTube. I want to be around to enjoy this. I have to make some lifestyle changes. Yep. So I had a really good talk with sugar. Like, sugar didn't want to break up with me. It was like, are you sure? Can we work it out? Maybe just give me a couple days, call me back. And I am so proud to say that I finished the last O. Henry bar last week. I was like, I'm not going to let good chocolate go to waste. So I ate the last chocolate bar 7 days ago. And usually my cheat days are on the weekends, but sometimes in the evenings I have a treat. It's been 7 days. I have not had anything sugar sweet. I did have some headache withdrawals, but I feel great. And now for me, the sugar that I'm going to consume is only going to be on special occasions. Like if it's a birthday, a milestone event, I'm no longer going to keep sugar in the house. And I'm learning now, I'm going to be probably coming to you the next few months. I'm learning to make sugar-free vegan chocolate mousse recipes that are like sugar, but they're not. So you trick your body. So I actually am going to learn to make a chocolate mousse, which is out of a vegan tofu, almond milk, and cocoa powder and vanilla extract. And did you know there's a big craze right now on TikTok? It's called a cottage cheese ice cream. So you actually make ice cream with cottage cheese and almond milk, and you put fresh berries in there, and it actually tastes better than ice cream, and it's healthy for you.
Keyword is when they say it tastes better than ice cream, that's when they know they're trying to get you.
But listen, so
because at least say it's similar to ice cream. You cannot compare it. That's something that's already got no sugar, vegan, no milk-free milk stuff. It's not going to stay like that.
Okay, but anyway, stop bursting my bubble. I'm really excited because Sugar did try to call me the other day, and I did not pick up the phone. I said, Sugar, no, we broke it up. Listen, and so I am so proud of myself on this self-discovery journey that I've cut the ties. I'm feeling better already. I'm back to working out, less inflammation in the body, and I just feel really good.
Good for you, Anne.
Yeah, I did it.
Good job.
I'm going to
We'll put you to the test though today then, because we're going to have some cake around you. We're going to have some chocolate.
Remember, it's a Saturday,
and you're not allowed to have any of it.
No, remember, I did say it is a Saturday. Those are my only cheat days.
You said you broke up. When it breaks up, doesn't mean you break up from Monday to Friday and get back together on Saturday, Sunday.
Well, that's what people do. That's why
I didn't go down that route.
Listen, that's my win. Why you got to rant on my win? Jesus Christ. That's a long ass relationship I've had with like Sugar, 40 somewhat years.
Yeah.
It took that long for me to say, listen,
but
back away, bitch.
You made a big announcement though. It's a big announcement.
It is a big announcement.
Put to the test though.
Yeah, but going 7 days, that's pretty huge for her.
That's for me. That's for me because I always have candy in the house.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of myself.
I'm studying right now, so I'm just eating goddamn candy. My pants are tight. Nothing is fitting. And I'm like, you got to wait till the end of the year. I don't have time for this right now.
I'm not going to make any promises like that. I know I'm going to give in as soon as I leave
But
here.
you know what? You're still in your 30s, so you're okay. If something happens.
When you get 40s, something changes. Something changes.
Speaking of the migraines and sugar, I literally had 2 bad headaches this entire week, all from eating sugar. And then I said, I'm not going to quit. And I did it again the next day. I said, I'm not a quitter, unlike this one over here. I was like, I took it like a champ. I went to work with a bad headache. And I said, no sugar. And then I went to Tim Hortons and they're like, there's a deal. Would you like to add a chocolate chip muffin to that coffee? I was like, yes.
Even with your headache.
And with my headache, I said, I'll save this for later when the headache goes away.
The worst thing is I will say, don't add sugar if you have a headache.
Yes.
It just magnifies it. Like, holy man, that's the key is like, have your sugar, but at least make sure your headache goes away.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into today's segment. It's a great episode. The three of us, when we talk about our episodes, sometimes I just go ahead and create them because I feel that a lot of the stuff that we talk about, it's very timely. And if we're going through it, I know some of you are going through it. And I think it's only fair that we do disclose and talk about some of our struggles so that you can connect with us because we're all human beings at the end of the day. Today, it's a positive thing that we're going to talk about because Alvin is debt free. Woo!
For now.
And you know what? There's a song I found here. I'm going to just play
I think you should define debt free because.
But let me play this song.
I'm in debt.
Listen, there's a song that says, I'm debt free and I know it.
Really?
I walk down the aisle, up in my head like it's still in style, yeah. This is how I roll, stuffing by clearance spinning out of control. It's Stacy with the budget wallet, and like Dave Ramsey, there's no plastic in it. Just look at that money. Just look at that money.
Just looking at money?
Just look at that money.
That's sketchy.
That is. I like it.
Like,
I'm debt free, and I know.
I am. Feels good. Feels good.
That's awesome.
what a song.
Good job. I
It's a
love
good
how you
song.
found
I'm telling you, there's a song for every occasion there now.
And it's a good one too.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That is a really, really good one. But the reason is, listen, how many of us have been in debt? How many of us are in debt? And how many of us feel that sometimes there's no way out of debt?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been there. Rose, you've been there.
Yep.
Al, you've been there. So we're going to get you to
I've
talk
been there
about
many times, back and forth.
But no, this is, you're also maturing now. And so we actually want you to table what your plan was, how you got yourself out of debt. Talk to us because then it's going to give hope to anyone else out there. Sometimes you just got to hunker down and be disciplined. And it's the purchases, right? So your debt, let's talk about it, Al, because there are 2 types of debt here, right? There's also household debt. There's mortgage debt. There's consumer debt.
I have that.
So what was your debt? Was it consumer debt, credit card debt?
It was all credit card debt.
Okay.
And there's been waves of it. When I was younger, you get caught up in the shopping. I'd first in my head, it always felt like the visa was my money. So that's where they kind of make you think that, because they try to get you all with the points, use the visa. So before, I would use my debit card for things. I'm like, okay, only when I need to buy things, I'll go use my visa. I try to keep track of it. Then I found, okay, this is not working because I'm spending on both sides and I can't really keep track.
So Al, just get you to back it up. A debit card is what? Like it's cash, right?
Debit card is cash, yeah. Okay. And it's just a card that you're using to access your cash from your bank account. And obviously when you're young and stuff, there's not that much money in there. So you're like, I'll just use my visa for now and I'll pay it in a few weeks. So you get caught up in using your visa. And then a few weeks go by and you're like, oh, I've spent like a few $100s. Oh, that's a lot. I can't pay that right now. And then you just pay like $50 of that. Right. And you're like, oh, I'll pay it again in a few weeks. But then you continue using the card and it starts adding up. And before you know it, if you go on like a Boxing Day shopping spree or something on sale and it leads to one thing to another. And, oh, we're going to go out tonight too. Oh, okay, we're going to go do a bunch of stuff. And then the entire weekend went from you spending a couple $100 at shopping. Then the evening time, now you're going to go out and party. And here in Vancouver, if you're going to drive your car and get it driven back because you're drinking, that you're talking like a $400 or $500 night right there. And then you wake up on Sunday morning and you're like, oh, this has been $1,000 weekend. And it adds up very, very fast. And I found that what I had to eventually do is just not even use my debit card, just use the visa so I can keep track of what all my expenses are. And then go from there and say, okay, like I go back through it, I'll say, holy shit, how did you spend $200 at H&M? And you get caught up in the thing when you're there and they say, oh, you bought like 3 things. You know, if you spend $150, we'll give you $40 off. And if you go to $200, we're going to give you $50 off. So now they've got you thinking like, oh, I'm going to save more money. But really you end up spending more money. And it was all on clothes or it was all on things that you're like, I'm like, this is kind of like, I should have like watched myself. So as I got older is when I really started like paying attention. Where am I spending my money? Like, why is it always just coming and going? And I found that I really had to cut back on the extra stuff. So like just buying unnecessary clothes, gadgets. And I think when I really stopped drinking and going on partying, that was where a big amount of my savings went. I honestly like, and in 1 year I looked at it, I spent about $10,000 on alcohol.
Jesus.
And that's where a lot of my purchases were on the credit card, because you just kept racking it up. You go out, you bought a case of beer. It was like $50 for like a flat. You bought booze and you bought this. And then you're like, a month later, you're like, how much have I spent in the last month on booze? And then it was like a few $100, $500. It adds up and you can't pay off the visa in time. So that the balance starts carrying, the interest starts going up. And when you pay your minimums, what I find is, even if you pay your minimums, after like 4 or 5 months, they'll bump your credit limit up. Right. If they see you nearing your credit limit, but you're making the payments, they just bump it up again. Now you're like, oh, I've got another $1,000 to use, another $2,000. So it went down a slippery slope. And since I would say stop drinking. And another thing is when you do drink, you get in that really happy phase where you're out and about. You're like, oh yeah, this round's on me.
Generous.
And it happens, you get generous, and it happens all the time. Everyone, you don't want people to stop drinking because you're drinking too. You're like, all right, this round's on me. You'll do shots. And everyone's lit again. And you're like, oh, that round of shots cost me $125, just one round. So the partying and the drinking was getting very expensive. Anyone knows you go here in Vancouver, nobody wants to wait in line to go out and do stuff. So you grease the guy to get in. And once you get in, you see how busy the bar is. You get a group of guys and you do bottle service. And one bottle is like $400. And it's just regular bottles, $40 regular. So those little things just get you. And as you get older, you start seeing that you're wasting your money in partying. And
I think, Elle, I have seen a huge shift for you in the last probably 18 months since we started this podcast. You've done a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, because whatever I was doing before, it was clearly not working for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're saying the relationship with sugar, the relationship with booze as I got older is not the same relationship I had when I was 25. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, you partied and then you wear it off. Now it's like it gets expensive. You feel like crap the next day and you're very depressed for days after.
Yep.
And you're like, makes no sense. And whenever I drink alcohol, my appetite's always gone immediately. Within the first 2 sips is gone. So it's not like you're not going to eat after. You're just going to continue drinking throughout the night. And it's just like it's just not what it used to be. So I had to take a break and I said, I think if I stop drinking, I'll probably start saving money. And it took me about a year to pay that entire debt off, like almost a year and a half, because in our heads, we always think, oh, I've got, let's say like $5-8 grand worth of debt. You're like, oh, once I start working, I'm going to pay this much off. But when you're working, you still have your regular bills that you got to pay, your insurance, your house bills, all this stuff. The basics have to be paid. And then you're like, oh, I'm not left with much after that. And whatever that extra is goes to your visa. And then you have to really like tighten the belt and be like, okay, I got to get to like paying this off. And you just like, I just kept hammering it out. Every paycheck I got before I could touch it, I would just put the money right to my Visa, and I would keep just enough that's going to cover my basic bills that come out of my debit account, like your hydro, your electricity, which you have to pay with cash, things like your TELUS bill. But other things, it was just like,
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to get you to break it down for folks here. In the name of transparency and honesty, are you comfortable sharing how much you were in debt by?
Yes, I would say just in the last year and a half, I was in debt total. I would say $8,000, but let's just say $10,000.
Okay, so 10,000. So that's not that bad, but caught it early.
It's a lot of money when you've only spent it on booze.
Right. Okay.
You feel like you don't just feel that your body is taking that 10 grand and absorbed it, and it's been just like trash. And then you feel worse because you're like, how I don't have no self-control.
So you were in debt by 10 grand. So those of you that are listening, if you have small debt, big debt, any kind of debt, Al's going to break down the payment plan and how he hunkered down. So how long did it take you to pay $10,000 off? You're saying 1 year?
A year and a bit, I would say. I just got debt free like 2 months ago, maybe a month ago.
Okay.
And then the moment I got debt free, other stuff comes on my plate as far as bills and one-time payments and things. And you're like, it is what it is, man. I was like, I can only do so much right now. But this other stuff that came on my stuff was not like stuff that I was just buying like for no use or thing. It was just a few things that came up that I had to pay off. But first thing I did was, I actually realized that when my Visa got maxed out, I was using a lot of my line of credit to like kind of get me by. And eventually once the Visa got maxed out and the line of credit got maxed out, it was a time to make a change.
Can I ask you, how much access to credit did you have? So how much could you have actually gone in total debt by?
So I actually tried it a few times to get my line of credit increased, but during that time I was not working. So they always asked for proof of employment, proof of income. I couldn't provide that. So they didn't give me an increase, thank God. But my line of credit was $5,000. But I was able to get my Visa increased, and my Visa went up to $15,000 limit.
Wow.
But I only, I think, hit about $8,000 max on that.
So you did have the potential to be in debt by double 20,000.
I could have went there.
Okay. Yeah. What made you decide to make the change and say, listen, like you caught it when it was 10K, and where is that aha moment? Like, I don't like the way I'm living.
It was my like the drinking stage where I was reaching my end, like where I'm done with the drinking. And because at that point when I was drinking, it didn't matter what I was spending. It was like the booze was more important to me. So it was like, it's okay, we'll figure it out later. It was always a mindset of you'll make it back again. You can pay it off in a certain amount of time. And that's how the debt slowly adds up. And then I finally reached that point where my body, my mind, and my soul could no longer take the booze anymore. And it said it's time for a change. And I made a change, which is another episode. Mm-hmm. But once I made the change, it was like, okay, so now this is the debt. I've always from time on managed to make enough cash to just pay the bills, the basics. So I'm not getting my credit affected. I paid the basics. Once I started working again properly, I just went to town on the thing, and I just basically like hunkered down. I didn't go out anywhere. I didn't buy any extra stuff. I didn't, even when you guys were going shopping for clothes, I was like, I don't need any clothes right now. I don't need nothing. And because you get caught up in that, I need to treat myself now. I deserve it. I paid off. I stopped drinking. And you go to the mall, and it's easy to spend $200-$300 easy. And that $200-$300 is $200-$300 I don't have. I've spent it on a card that they let me borrow $200-$300.
Right.
So it was a mindset I had to say, they're letting me borrow this, and they're letting me borrow at 20% interest. So I was like, I have to change my mindset. So
okay, Al, let's provide a little bit of context here though, because we don't want people to just think that you were drinking just, unnecessarily, but you had some losses in 2020, right?
Oh, yeah.
That affected you.
Up till that point, I always thought anyone with a drinking problem was just like weak and they didn't have any self-control, because I've never had a drinking problem up to that point. Like, there's times where someone's drinking, I'm like, yeah, I'm not drinking today. You can't force me to do it. Mm-hmm. But once I essentially like lost my uncle right at the beginning of the pandemic, who was like my second father figure. And then 3 months later, I lost like my grandma who like helped raise me. And then 3 months later, I lost my dog of like 17 years. And then 3 months later, I lost my best friend. Like the moment when uncle passed, I remember that was the day where I just went home and I couldn't process anything, and I just started drinking. And it wasn't like, I don't get like belligerently drunk. It was like the booze wasn't doing anything for me. It was just like keeping my mind just numb enough for me to go to sleep. And it was just started like that, and it trickled, because it would start with, I'm gonna have a couple drinks today, and the next day, a couple drinks again, a couple drinks again. And keep in mind, I was still like working throughout this thing, and then it just slowly started realizing that 6 beers doesn't do it for me anymore. 6 beers just warms me up, and then you need a dozen, and then you realize the cost of a dozen beers is about $30, and it adds up, and you're just literally drinking it and you're peeing it out, and just next day, and then the weekend comes around, you drink more, and it was just kept adding up because I was not paying my Visa. I was just putting on the Visa, and that $40 every time, $50 every time adds up, and then a year later, you're like, holy cow, all this money went to booze.
And Al, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is that slippery slope that when you do have a loss, all of us turn to a vice. All of us turn to something to numb our sorrows. And we do have an episode that's going to be coming out, y'all. You're going to want to listen to it. And Al, you didn't process the pain, because if you don't process pain, pain's going to process you.
I'm still working on processing it, but I've learned to have like a different relationship with myself and not be so hard on myself and trying to understand other things. Because I would say even before drinking, I've never mentally been in this space where I could have this control over booze. It was always like I had the control, but it was like, I don't want to drink today, but I'll be looking forward to it for the next 2 weeks. Like when there's a party, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be drinking. And my drinking has always been very controlled too. I don't go like get crazy drunk, but I'm like a marathon drinker. Like if I'm going to start at 7:00, my appetite is just essentially gone. So I have to force feed myself a little bit of food. And when it wears off, your stomach hurts a lot. So you continue drinking till like 2-3 in the morning. And between 7 to 2 a.m., you're like talking like 10 drinks.
Wow.
And that's the average person you see right now.
No, I was going to say that too, because I went for a work event and I watched a colleague have 6 drinks in 3 hours. And then we went back to the hotel. She's like, all right, bye guys, I'm going to go drinking. And I was like, it's midnight. And she went drinking all night long. So can you imagine in that small window, I watched her have 6 beverages. She's probably going to have another 6 to 9.
And for her, it didn't really probably get her going, because when you drink regularly all the time, it's actually gets the efficacy is less and less on the body. Yeah. So instead of you pouring one drink, this is doing nothing. You need to double just to like get yourself going. But you don't realize you're literally just self-sabotaging yourself and hurting yourself by putting all that booze in your system, but you're not able to process what's going on in your mind. So you're just like, this is what's working for me right now. It's my quick fix. I'm going to use it because it's helping me get to work the next day. Right? Yeah, it's a Band-Aid solution. Al, I'm going to do some rapid fire round questions with you. And I want you to keep your answers really quick and brief so that our listeners and our audience can get motivated, if they are in debt, to get out of debt. And then I've got some really interesting stats about household debt between Canada and America. So I can see you are that you were a statistic, but you no longer are. So Al, I want to just share, what was your actual motivation? What motivated you to say, like, I don't want to live like this anymore? My body and my mind could no longer take the booze. I was mentally
hit rock bottom, essentially.
I was mentally, emotionally, physically broken, and I actually hit complete rock bottom where I was not able to function. I was not able to work. I was not able to do anything, and that's when I said, it's either I die or I make a change, because that's what was going to happen with like the booze that was going to my body.
And before we add to the next question, that seems to be a theme where I listen to a lot of the podcasts, and the guests are always like, I hit rock bottom. That seems to be the only way before people make a drastic change in their life. And
it's unfortunate because some people think it's their rock bottom, but it's not, and they go even further and they're no longer there. So they don't even know what was their rock bottom. That's a slippery slope. You're right. Yep. Al, I just want to ask you, was there anything unexpected or unconventional strategies that you used to manage the debt, like that surprised you, that, hey, like this actually works? Like, did you trick your mind with anything? Like, did you do a reward system that, hey, once I get down to 3,000, I'm going to treat myself to this, I don't know.
When I hit certain intervals where I was like, okay, I got like, I would get the amount, let's say 8, and now it's down to 5,000. I still wouldn't buy anything, but I would treat myself to small things like sugar, or like I'm going to buy an expensive like cake or something like that. And then I would sit there and watch it. I watch, make sure there's nothing being charged on my Visa for the week. Because I hate when I get myself down to a thing, and then somehow like maybe I'm automatic billing, some charges came through, and you're like 5,500. God damn it! Like I can't get to this threshold. And there was a certain threshold when I had about 4,000. It kept staying there. Because every time I hit that 4,000, it was like other bills popped up or other expenses popped up. So there were certain times where you get frustrated, but I just kept saying, as long as I don't spend money on partying booze, I don't buy unnecessary clothes and unnecessary gadgets, because sometimes you'll get caught up in I think I need a tablet. I need to start reading more. You'll look for excuses to buy expensive things when you're like, I don't need this. So when I had to buy, like, I remember I needed a new computer. I was like, I'm not buying a new computer because I know what the specs I need. That's a $1,500 computer. I was like, I'm buying this used. I was like, I have $500, which this is essentially going to help me do my work. I would do things like that, but I literally like tighten the belt like crazy to the point where
you were really monitoring your debt.
Oh yeah.
And your purchases.
Yeah. And if there's any random charge I got added there, I would like go through it, and I would go through my Visa every week to be like, told them, see, what's that balance
Good for
showing?
you.
What got added? What's different? It was like literally me doing like financial analysis just on my Visa statement to be like, there's no extra shit coming through on this thing.
Wow.
And I did find there was 2 charges that somehow, some online charges got added on my account and someone must have taken my card, used it somewhere. Because I was like, what are these things on there? And then someone's on the bank, they're like, this was used online at this thing over here. I was like, I didn't buy that. She's like, are you thinking to buy it? So I didn't realize my card got skimmed twice in like a year and a half too. So I had to get 2 new Visa cards and then I had to go through a whole process of updating everything on top of that.
But good for you for being on top of it, because how many people and transactions like that slip through the cracks if you don't monitor your bills?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Another one here. Now that you're debt free, how's your relationship with money and your financial planning evolved now? Like, what's your relationship like with money?
I'm still trying to make myself look at it differently in the sense where I'm not trying to say, oh, I'll just make it back again. I'll make it back. I'm trying also not to stay so connected to be like, oh my God, money's everything. Like if I don't have this, I'm dying. Like it's kind of a weird relationship. I feel like everyone has their own relationship with it, but I also am trying to get away from the thinking of, oh, the money, it'll come later. I say, no, like if I don't learn to save now, when I do get more money in the future, I won't know how to save that either.
Yes,
because I'll set myself up, into it's going to be like a slippery slope. So I was like, if I manage it now on a very tight budget that I have and very little income, I was like, if I can manage this now and still not sacrifice like my quality of life, then I know I'll be fine.
Good for you. And you got your 2 ex-sisters, your 2 sisters, not ex-sisters, 2 sisters who are ex-bankers.
Yeah.
We will manage your moolah for you.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what's your advice? What advice would you give to someone who's currently struggling with debt and looking for ways to become financially stable and debt free?
First thing you gotta do is you gotta clear the credit card debt, because you're not gonna once you're over 5,000, 6,000, paying that off and trying to pay it off in a timely manner at 20% interest, it'll be like next to impossible. So what you have to do is what I did at some point was I took whatever I had on my line of credit and I dumped it into my Visa to bring the thing down, because my line of credit interest was like 5%, 5-6%.
Yes.
If I had more, I would have used it more, but I only had 5,000 to take. So I took that and then I started calculating how much is my minimum to pay on the Visa now and the minimum to my line of credit, because you still also pay your interest on your line of credit.
So first thing is eliminate your high interest debt.
Exactly. Get where you can to bring that completely down.
Okay.
And then when you do that, you got to really like have a talk with yourself to be like, when you start, because what I did was I did start using my Visa immediately after that. I said, everything will be on my Visa now. No longer debit, no cash, just Visa. So I can track everything and I'll pay that from my account so I can see, every 2 weeks I have to pay $800 down. What did I spend in that 2 weeks of $800? So you have to break it down, get that completely down. And then you have to get yourself to say, everything I buy on my Visa, it better be something that you have to use on your Visa for. And if you're going to use it, you have to be disciplined enough to pay your thing off. So sometimes like when Rose will ask me to buy something on my Visa, sure, I'll give you the money. The moment she gives me the money, I don't even sit in my bank account. It goes right to my Visa. Because when it sits in my bank account and I'll say, I'll pay it next week. In my head, I look at my balance and say, I've got like $1,000 to play with. Okay. That's in my head. It starts looking like it's my money to use, but really it should have went straight to my Visa.
Okay, I like that. So what I'm hearing, and then I'm going to reiterate back to you here, and let's confirm, Rose. So I'm hearing is number 1, pay off high interest credit cards and debt. Number 2 is start tracking your purchases. And then number 3, start figuring out like a payment plan, repayment plan. And
what I also do is I take out like any money that's extra in the checking. I completely remove from checking. I put into a separate account, and it's literally, so I only see like, let's say $2,000 in your checking, and it makes you feel like you're broke all the time. So you're like, I can't spend any much more money. That's all I see is $2,000. I'm broke. And then you're like, I got to make sure I get my Visa down, because I can't let this thing go below $2,000. You need to have a little bit. But if you put $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in there, you're like, oh yeah, I'm good. I got like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So I take it out so I can't even see it.
You know what, Angie? I think Al's onto something, because that's what I do. I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in a while. So what I do is I just pour like sparkling water in a wine glass, and I make it seem like I'm drinking wine, but I'm not drinking anything.
Yeah. But Al, can I say something to you? I'm listening to you right now as your sister, and of course, as a big sister, it's a proud moment. But I'm listening to you, and I'm exhausted. So I can't imagine for those people that are in debt, the daily mental struggle and the amount of energy that you've consumed because the household debt, right?
The amount of stress is the more stress of hiding it from everybody else too, because I hid it from you guys for a long time. They're like, how's it looking like? I was like, it's all good as long as my basics were paid. But I was like, in my house, like, I gotta get this down. But when you're in the cycle and you're like, I gotta get this down, but you also need your like fix, because you're like, I can't like process what's going on here. You go get more booze, and it's like it just goes into like a crazy domino effect.
You know, Angela got me thinking, Years back, I went on a date with a guy and he told me he was in $100,000 debt. And I was like,
wow.
I couldn't even fathom it. I was like, how do you even like live?
But you know what? There's different types of debt, right?
Debt.
Mortgage debt, people have.
No, there was no mortgage
Some
debt.
people have student loans. Some people have student loans.
Cars, student loans, credit card, all of the stuff that's not necessary.
Oh boy. But wasn't Obama in debt until he won the presidency in 2008 and then he paid off his student loans?
And in a way, I don't think that's something that he should probably tell people, because he didn't understand how the student loan debt obviously worked, because it is very high. But if you buckle down and paid that off, you shouldn't have had to wait till you and I have had student loans. We buckled down and paid that off. Al had student loan debt. He buckled down.
But you also have to understand, we also don't have children, right? And we don't have that conventional lifestyle that most people that are parents.
He's a lawyer. He's from a Harvard graduate.
Okay.
He just
I don't know if I can cut.
Let's get to some important stuff. Al, final question now. Looking back at your journey, what are you most proud of achieving, and what's next for you in your financial goal? Like, do you want to save up a certain amount of money by end of the year? Like, what is, what are you most proud of?
I'd like to save up money, but I'm also finding it, even once you're out of debt, just saving money is so tough because there's always like some sort of expense that pops up. So what I'm doing is now I'm just trying to take a little bit of my money and I put it to the side and I say, it's just going to be invested into something. So I have my friend actually forced me to do this. I think this was like 2 years ago. He kept saying during the pandemic, he's like, man, you got to like invest in some stocks and stuff. I was like, I've done stocks. I always lose. He's like, put it into like a mutual fund or something that's like that he was getting into. And he's like, oh, well, just what can you afford? I was like, I can't afford nothing right now. He's like, I'm sure you can afford $100 every 2 weeks. And at that point, I just said, I'll make this work somehow. So even while I was in debt making payments, I made sure that $100 automatically got taken out of my account. And he's like, watch, it'll start compounding. So within a year, I think I had put in 2 G's and it was at like $5,000.
Wow.
And then I just looked at it the other day and it's only been about 2 years now. I think maybe I put in like 7,000 over the account. It's $200 every month and it's at 13,000 now.
Oh, good for
and he's
you.
like, I put you into like the IT funds and that's got a high growth on
What
there.
a nice friend.
Yeah. It was DK and Harsh made me do it.
Oh, that's
See,
nice.
those are nice friends. I want to see you succeed.
They're like, you're always spending money on booze and other stuff. He's like, you gotta have money to put in this. You just bought like $100 worth of alcohol. I'm sure you can put
Those are
$100
nice.
into
Those are
that.
good
Those
friends.
are great friends.
He forced me into it, and he looks back now. I'm like, I see it every time. It was like 25% returns. I was like, and it's compounding. So I was
Well,
like,
why don't you give them a shout out?
hey, shout out, guys. Thanks, guys, for forcing me to say.
Yeah.
Okay, Al. So that was great, Al. I feel like we'll have to come back again and talk about debt.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yep.
I don't think anyone is immune to not being in debt at some point in their life, but I think you got to have a plan, like Al said, and then and tackle it. That is the most important thing, to have some peace of mind
There's
down
one
the road.
kicker to that though. The time where I almost was out of debt, I was like, oh, I got some cash in my bank account, which I bet you everybody can relate to this one. My engine on my car went and my car was done. And it was like too expensive to repair it. So whatever I'd saved up, I was like, I can't go into more debt and basically like put a loan on this car. And I was like, I'm just going to use whatever I have to pay this car. So I still am not in debt. So I ended up taking all that cash and I bought myself a used Corolla, which I still love.
Good for you, Alvin.
Good for you, Al. Very, very smart. And sometimes, you know what? You one thing I do admire about you is you have never gotten caught up in the flash.
Yeah.
I know there's so many people your age that have the most expensive cars. They've got it souped up, duped up, rims and all, whatever you call it, and a spoiler. And I'm like, who's looking at your car?
I unfortunately spent my money at the experiences. So like, you may have bought the car, but when we were at the bar and you're with me, everyone's having a great time because we're just firing shots off and you don't care. You're like, we're spending the money. That's why I spent the money. Unfortunately, I didn't spend it on my car, but we all live and learn. Eh?
Absolutely. Well, you're on to bigger and better, and you're elevating, motivating, and inspiring yourself. And all of our listeners out there that are in debt. This is, financial freedom is so huge. Now, I want to get into some stats here. Okay. So this is when I went to ChatGPT, my good friend here. These stats, of course, as you know, they're not updated. So they're still updating them. But this is for Canada. So for Canada, the total household debt by mid 2023 was approximately $2.5 trillion. Okay. Now in USA, the total household debt in the United States reached approximately $15.5 trillion by mid 2023. That's not bad considering the population for the US,
and
right?
also America is more of a consumer driven economy, right? So it's very much pushing, selling
when
things
you
on
see
you.
there too, the way they're big signs all over the highways. They just want you to eat, consume medicine, consume, buy a new car, get in debt, and put you in a cycle.
I've got some more. So we know that mortgage debt, of course, especially here in Canada, mortgage debt in Canada is the largest component of household debt here.
Yep.
It's a significant portion of total debt. And as we know, consumer debt is like credit card debt, personal loans. It's basically sometimes purchasing things that are wants and not needs. Now I want to get to here. So debt service income ratio. Have you ever heard of the term debt to income ratio?
Yep.
Okay. So what for those of you that don't know what debt to income ratio means, it's the percentage of your monthly income that goes towards paying debts. So the debt to income ratio for US households was 81% in mid 2023. So what that means is for every $100 in disposable income, households owe $81. They're $81 in debt. So they really only have, 81 minus $119 to spare.
I believe that.
Okay. But Canada, we're way worse. You ready for this?
You have free healthcare.
So listen,
worse.
But
because we're paying for it.
It's our mortgage, our housing. Okay. So brace yourselves, Canadians, if you're listening to this. The debt to income ratio for Canadian households was around 175% in mid 2023. So you know what that translates to? So for households owe $1.75 for every dollar of disposable income.
Wow.
So we're overspending in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
That got me the heebie-jeebies. I'm like, we're in trouble.
Yeah. I thought we were in trouble. You guys are in trouble too.
We're in trouble because you guys still have...
No one talks about Canada and economics enough, right? No one talks about Canada's economy enough. It's always fixated on the US. We're in $1 trillion debt, but no one's talking about how bad Canada is.
I knew our debt was... I had a feeling that we were in trouble because I know in Canada, we have been coasting on low interest rate mortgages and our housing market is absolutely insane. A lot of people are heavily in debt because they're able to have these, monster mortgages because the interest rate has been so low for so long. But as you know now, I know Bank of Canada lowered the interest rates, but they're going to creep up at some point. Like during our parents, mortgage rates were in double digits in the 80s and 90s.
Well, in the States now, mortgage rates are 7 to 8% now.
So everybody start looking at your credit card transactions. Like Al said, has a plan, find a plan, make it work, hunker down and figure it out. And we will try and get a money expert on our podcast to talk to us and to break all this stuff down because this has got me all freaked out. And we are in the business of elevating, motivating, and inspiring all of you to live your best life. So we are going to do our part to help you with your quest to financial freedom and to get debt free. However, which way, listen, we know mortgage might take forever, but that is the only debt I want you to have is your mortgage debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then I know that you're safe and sound, you've got shelter, and you're going to continue watching our podcast. So that'll make me happy. So until then, this was our getting out of debt episode, and our little brother is debt free. Woo! And go check out that song on YouTube that says I'm debt free now.
It's a great song.
Great track. So the tribe is signing off. To all of our friends and family, thank you so much for your ongoing support. Our channel is growing. We can't even fathom and we don't even know how to process this, but we just want to say we're so incredibly grateful. Thank you for allowing us into your home and into your heart every week. We love you for that. And the tribe is going to be back next week. Don't forget to check us out on all of our social channels. Hit that subscribe button and we're going to do some amazing things together. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
See ya.